Welcome to Open Minds Radio with your host, Alejandro Rojas, former official spokesperson for the Mutual UFO Network. Alejandro has been a UFO paranormal researcher and journalist for nearly a decade and has logged hours in the field investigating the paranormal up close and personal. And now Open Minds Radio presents evidence and the latest news regarding the UFO phenomenon. Here's your host, Alejandro Rojas.
Hello and welcome to Open Minds Radio. You heard that right. It is 9 p.m. and 102 degrees here in Arizona. I'm sure some of you are freaking out, running around in circles with your arms waving above your heads to hear that. But actually, you know what? I'm loving it out here. I love all the sunshine. So all of you concerned people who are always saying, how do you do it, man? It's not that bad, really. Well, it's not like I'm going to go for a bike ride. I was talking with someone else. Not going for a bike ride tonight. A little too hot for that. But it's perfect to be indoors listening to the radio or in your car with your AC listening to Open Minds, especially tonight because our guest is my superb cousin, Jason Cordova, and that's really cool because he has been my partner in paranormal investigation for a long time, at least, you know, after he got out of the Navy and after he deprogrammed his mind a little bit from the Navy, and then got, you know, back into school and got into the swing of things. And it's pretty cool because what he then did at the college he just graduated from, with a degree in aerospace operations, which is pretty cool. That's just a cool name, aerospace operations. You know, if you're going to work in, like, if the Star Trek world in the engineering area of the Enterprise, that's the kind of degree you got to get, I think, from Starfleet Academy. He didn't go to Starfleet Academy, though. He went to Metro State College, and as I was saying, when he was there, he started up a paranormal group called the Crypto Science Society. He says it's an organization dedicated to the study of unusual phenomena. And actually now he's, since he's founded it, but he's graduated, he's an alumni, and he's trying to help get this group throughout the country. And they were actually very successful. One thing that he noted, which everybody notes in this field, is that there aren't very many younger people in paranormal research. I was shocked when I went to my first MUFON meeting, and it was like an AARP meeting. No offense to the people, my mentors and colleagues who I love. I mean, everybody's over 50 years old, lots of 50, 60, and above, and I'm not kidding a lot. You know, the curve, the middle age is up there. So everybody wants to get the younger kids involved, and Jason identified that. But he went about it in a way that was just a little different from, I think, what people normally want to happen. And we'll talk about that, how he was successful, why, and I'm sure he's going to be successful in getting a network going throughout colleges and universities. He's actually already talked to some people to do that. So we'll talk more about that. We'll talk more about paranormal investigations we've done and all kinds of cool stuff like that coming up in just a minute. Also, for those of you who don't like commercials, quit whining because that's how people make money. But your whining works because I hear you. Personally, I hate commercials myself. I can't lie. I don't watch TV with commercials. If there's a commercial that comes on, I'm going to change the channel, and I'm possibly not even going to change the channel back to what I was watching before because I don't like the commercials. In fact, most likely what I'll do is start watching things until I find a show like a PBS where there's no commercials. That's why I watch so much C-SPAN, the book part, because, you know, there's no commercials on there, so you can watch the whole thing. So that might be a good thing. That says a lot for public television. But anyways, we're going to be going strictly online, so you can go to openminds.tv to listen to us if you're one of our new Phoenix area buddies. Also, we're podcasted, and we have archives online. You can see us on Ustream. Go to our website, the radio page. If you like the visual stuff, you can watch us. If you like the audio while you're off doing other stuff, you can listen. You know, we've got lots of options for you guys here. So we're going to be going to a new time also. We're going to go to 7 p.m. on Mondays, so we'll be a little earlier, a couple hours earlier, which is going to be good for our East Coast buddies who don't have to stay up to the middle of the night anymore to listen live. And the reason why you want to listen live is because we've got chat going on at Ustream and at Blog Talk. Just go to our website, actually, and on the radio tab, and you can chat with us while we're doing this whole thing. And as you know, if you've been listening to the show, I ask questions from the chat often. So changes to the radio station. Did I forget anything? Because I always forget something. Longer. I always forget some point. It's also going to be a longer show, so we're going to be an hour and a half instead of an hour, because a lot of you were saying you're not getting in depth, your show is awful, it's short, and it's really making me mad. So I was like, hey, man, chill, okay, we'll change it, you know? Just kidding. But, yeah, a lot of people did want some longer stuff, so we've got a longer show. So that's going to be really cool, as usual, and we'll have a commercial coming up on it, I'm sure, with the UFO Congress coming up. I'm always talking about that. I'm just so excited. We've confirmed the Skywatch that we're going to be doing out in the desert in this incredible location here in Arizona. And after a Friday Night Franks where Native Americans come and tell some stories, it's this fun get-together thing for the whole community. After that, you know, where we got bonfires, we're eating hot dogs, we're drinking beer. After that, I don't drink much, so, and I'm not going to drink, neither is Jason, right? Cause
You're not going to eat a hot dog either.
I'm not going to eat a hot dog because I'm a vegetarian. But after all of that fun, we're going to skywatch and look for some UFOs. And I'm pretty sure we're going to see them. We're going to have Stan Romanek, some other abductees, and we may even see somebody get abducted. That would be first time someone's been filmed abducted that I would know of. That would be incredible. So come make that happen. Help us make that happen. You can find out more about the UFO Congress at ufocongress.com. That's going to be in late February, or go to our website. But without further ado, every day on OpenMinds.tv, practically, we've got news, headlines from conventional news around the world, because UFOs is a big story around the world. Our news correspondent, Jason McClellan, is here to tell us all about it.
Greetings, Alejandro. Hello, Phoenix, and hello, world. This is your Open Minds News Brief for Monday, August 23rd, 2010. Several British travel companies are trying to push something a little different: UFO tourism. The unusual new marketing effort by travel companies hopes to transform destinations with frequent UFO activity into money-making tourist destinations for UFO hunters. Regular UFO activity in Cyprus has the location being pushed by the travel companies. Other places known for UFOs have been successful at becoming tourist destinations, like Roswell, New Mexico. So the idea of UFO tourism isn't a new one, but it seems to be gaining in popularity. In fact, the Travel Channel just even aired a special about Area 51 in Nevada.
Yeah, the Travel Channel, it's funny. They have a lot of really cool shows. I mean, paranormal is a tourism type of thing. There's lots of hotels and stuff for ghost hunting and things like that. So it works. I mean, Rachel, Nevada, near Area 51 would probably have nobody there if it wasn't for Area 51.
Right. And like you said, the hotels with the ghosts, I mean, that's very popular all around Arizona. There are a lot of popular hotels for that. We always seem to have UFO sightings to report from the UK. Here's another sighting from last week. A mysterious orange fiery globe was observed above Edmonton. The woman who reported the object described it as a ball of fire moving with no noise. It was not moving quickly, but the woman said it was definitely propelled and not simply floating. Several UFOs have been sighted in the same area lately. It was kind of sad with this particular sighting, though. The witness, she specifically stated when she gave her report that she didn't want her name given for fear of ridicule. That's sad.
That's really sad. You know, I had an investigation with a police officer who had this incredible sighting, and he almost wouldn't give me his information to contact him back because he had this incredible Bigfoot sighting where they put it on a television show with his name, and he asked not to have his name because he was a police officer. He didn't want people making fun of him, so it had a real negative effect on his life back then.
We hear a lot of that working in this field. You know, we're fortunate to work in the field that we do. It's interesting because when you talk to people, you meet people for the first time or you're just in conversation and people find out what field we're in, then all of a sudden they feel comfortable. And it seems like so many people come out with their own experiences, their own sightings, their own stories that they finally feel that they can tell somebody without being ridiculed because they know that this is what we do every day.
Right. And they don't want to share it with the general public.
Right. Hopefully that'll change.
Yeah.
The San Diego Air and Space Museum is currently hosting an exhibit entitled The Science of Aliens. The exhibit is broken into 4 areas: alien fiction, alien science, alien worlds, and alien communication. Unfortunately, the alien fiction area of the exhibit features content donated by the International UFO Museum and Research Center in Roswell, New Mexico, which gives the impression that the Roswell incident was fiction. I find that kind of odd.
And it's interesting that the International Museum would donate stuff because obviously they take Roswell very seriously. I wonder if they knew they were going to put it in the fiction section.
I somehow doubt that they did.
I know, that's
seems
very cool.
very odd. Yeah.
I mean, fiction, you'd put Star Trek and Star Wars. You know?
Right, and that's what some of the exhibit was props from movies and things like that.
Yeah.
Granted, they had some footage there, I think, from the alien autopsy and things like that. But they also had this stuff donated by the museum, which was an odd placement, I thought.
Yeah.
So that is a traveling exhibit, and it's been around the world, including Paris and Tokyo, and the San Diego Air and Space Museum is hosting it through the end of the year. So that's kind of cool that an exhibit like that is in just a normal museum.
Yeah. And they did have some positive stuff.
Right.
I mean, the guy who wrote the story, I think, even wrote that the Roswell stuff was a little convincing.
As Nick Pope, former Britain Ministry of Defense, has stated many times, UFO reports in the UK are on a record high. Knowing this, it comes as no surprise to see newspapers in Halifax and Calderdale announce that UFO sightings are on the rise in the area. The Evening Courier reported last week that more people are reporting seeing UFOs in the sky, and many of the witnesses describe very similar objects, bright orange orbs or spheres. Unfortunately, the behavior described by some of the witnesses makes these objects sound very much like Chinese lanterns. They're described as hovering in the sky for a few moments before disappearing all of a sudden. That's how only a handful have been described, but that seems to be, without actually seeing it, the description is very Chinese lantern-like.
Which is something that we're going to do real soon. We've got to get some Chinese lanterns and float them and videotape them so we can show people what they look like.
Absolutely. I think it's very important for people to know what things in the sky look like so they can distinguish for themselves.
Yep.
And lastly, a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned a new book by Leslie Kean entitled UFOs on the Record. Generals, pilots, and government officials go on the record. Leslie Kean will actually be appearing on the Colbert Report tonight at 11:30 to talk about the book. Our Arizona listeners might find it interesting to know that former Arizona Governor Fife Symington contributed to the book.
Yeah, excellent. Hopefully I'll be on time when I get home to watch it.
Me too.
We're out of time for the first segment of the show. Stay tuned. We'll be back with Jason Cordova.
Open Minds Production is proud to present the 20th anniversary of the International UFO Congress, coming to its new home at the Radisson Fort McDowell Resort and Casino in Scottsdale, Arizona. This is the premier annual event for UFO researchers, enthusiasts, and the general public with an interest in mysterious phenomena. Come listen to expert ufologists, government officials, and respected scientists presenting information relating to UFOs, extraterrestrials, crop circles, abductions, cover-ups, and more at the largest UFO conference in the country. The 20th anniversary of the International UFO Congress takes place February 23rd to February 27th. Visit ufocongress.com for more information, including sponsorship and vendor opportunities.
You're listening to Open Minds Radio with Alejandro Rojas on KFNX News Talk Radio 1100.
Welcome back. Sure enough, as soon as I say there's no commercials, someone in the chat says, "What? I love commercials." I think they were kidding, but either way, we'll add a couple of commercials to the upcoming show just to make sure we've got all of our bases covered. I did want to mention also a couple of the cool things that we have at our website at openminds.tv. I always want to kind of give you an update on some of the new stories. We have a couple stories on pilot encounters with UFOs from Russia, the USSR, and CIS, the Commonwealth of Independent States out there. in the Russian area. And I say USSR because some of these sightings are back during the Cold War. So those are some really great stories. Also, I think I mentioned this before because it was new on the last show, a French aerospace report that endorses the reality of UFOs. Really, out of all the countries out there, there are some that are supposedly releasing sanitized, kind of UFO reports, and they say there's nothing to UFOs, and they're releasing their investigations, even though, like we've talked about the UK, they seem to really point towards a total issue, safety issue with UFOs flying over air bases and things like that. But the French are actually doing investigations. They're the only country that is not just releasing reports. They're officially, and some of these aerospace companies are doing full-on investigations. They've got budgets, they've got scientists, and they're doing some amazing stuff out there in France. So really, France is the only country really taking this stuff on. So way to go, France. Jason Cordova is our guest tonight, and I believe he is on the phone. Hello?
Hello.
Hello. How's it going?
Pretty good. How are you?
Not too bad. A little warm out here, otherwise doing pretty good. So it's cool to have you on the show. I know you've been talking about wanting to come on the show, and I've wanted to come on for quite some time, so it's fun to finally get you on here. Although you have been on before once when with the Stan Romanek Witness show, I guess.
Yeah, it was when you, it was still with the UFO think tank.
Oh, before Open Minds. Way
Yeah.
back in the day.
Way back in the day.
So I've talked about, first let's talk about your degree in aerospace operations real quick. If you can kind of explain to people what that is. Does that mean that you are now certified and to fly spacecraft?
I wish. No, basically what my degree prepares me for is it's basically project management, logistics type of things, with a heavy background in the aerospace industry as well as mechanical engineering.
Uh-huh.
My minor, with a heavy emphasis on the space aspect and commercialized space operations specifically.
Very cool, which is an up-and-coming industry.
Yes, it is.
Which I know you keep a very close eye on.
Try to.
Well, along with that, I was hoping you could share with us then your recent story of the class that you took with this, if you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah. The basically, long story short, it's a class to learn how to use the updates on this powerful physics modeling program. And it's used throughout the aerospace industry for primarily tracking satellites. A contractor buys a satellite, they put it up in space, and they want to be able to deal with their spacecraft. So everybody uses it: Boeing, Lockheed, the Air Force Space Command. And I was down there in Colorado Springs taking this class, and there were a number of Air Force officers there with us, Air Force officers and enlisted both. And we had some off time, and I was chatting with a female captain, and I had asked a question about their patch. As you know, and I don't know how familiar the listeners are with it, but the Air Force Space Command patch has this really neat logo, which the artwork is basically depicts a globe with some orbit, kind of like an orbit around the globe, with a silver or gray delta-shaped object suspended in the center just above the globe. And I was asking their side of what the patch is supposed to mean, and one of the enlisted Air Force personnel claimed that it was supposed to represent the actual spacecraft. And I said, oh, really? That's interesting. I was like, are there any spacecraft that actually look like that? And she paused and looked at the captain really quick, and the captain kind of chuckled and said, oh, we're not supposed to talk about that.
Yeah, what a cool story.
Yeah, and they changed the subject, and we went on with the class.
Because, of course, like you said, it's got that delta shape. There are also some stars that represent, obviously, satellites orbiting the planet. But, you see in these Space Command logos this delta shape, which seems to represent a spacecraft. But, nobody but NASA is supposed to be flying spacecraft. And you're like, what the heck here, people? So it's funny you asked, and it's an interesting answer you got.
Yeah, and that, as another point to that, even though NASA supposedly is supposed to be the only people flying spacecraft, it's obvious that, the Air Force and the Navy and all the armed service branches do operate spacecraft. And, in fact, a number of NASA missions are top secret military operations. Right.
And, Michael Schratt, of course, who you're familiar with, did some interesting lectures, and MUFON does a great lecture recently. And you can see one of his lectures online at openminds.tv, where he talks about black projects and some of these clear evidence of, back in the 80s, even these craft that could break orbit, and all of a sudden, next generation space shuttles, where they just go totally black. They had built these craft, and then all of a sudden they're top secret.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously it seems like they're out there. So hopefully you'll get to work on one soon.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
I also wanted to get into, of course, the Crypto Science Society. And we don't have a whole lot of time, but, what was the purpose in creating that?
Well, the purpose really was to, one, to get young people involved in the topics of just strange phenomenon in general, and two, was to pay some academic attention to it, to bring research and studying of this stuff into an academic light.
Do you think you were successful in those two areas?
I do.
Cool. And which one, even the academic part?
I think both, actually. It's really impressed me with how successful it has been, at least at our school. And there is a little bit of, so far there's been some attention and some interest in some other schools nearby of founding their own chapters. But definitely the young people, it's what the younger generation likes.
Cool.
And wants.
Well, what we'll do when we get back from this break is we'll talk about specifics and the approach you took to each of those 2 points and how you got successful on both of those two areas. So stay tuned. We'll be right back talking more about the Crypto Science Society.
This is Open Minds Radio. Here again, your host, UFO paranormal researcher and journalist, Alejandro Rojas.
Welcome back to Open Minds Radio. We're talking with Jason Cordova, who started the Crypto Science Society, a successful college paranormal research organization. And Jason, I wanted to ask you then, what did you see lacking in the like MUFON meetings or the paranormal meetings with the AARP group that you felt needed to be adjusted and that you did adjust to attract the younger group?
Well, the interactivity, I think, would probably be the biggest thing that tends to be lacking with a lot of those groups. Is just, particularly with younger people, you're not going to want to go and after, especially school-age type people, aren't going to want to go sit in class all day listening to lectures all day and then come and spend their free time listening to another lecture. Even if it is a very riveting and exciting topic, it's not the best for attracting a new audience. And I think new people in general kind of are a little apprehensive to jump into that.
Right. So then you did something different with your meetings, and so how did you structure them?
Well, I think a benefit of being a smaller group, it was able to flourish with the idea of just making it participatory. So all of the members basically took a turn every month, researching a different topic of their choosing. Everything from the spring-heeled jack to Mothman, Phantom Panthers, spontaneous combustion, things like that. Taking turns writing a 2 or 3 page research report on the topic, and then presenting it at the meeting to the other members, opening it up for discussion, and in addition to that, doing interactive investigator training at every meeting too.
That makes a lot of sense. It's getting people involved, and I can see, and this is the funny part, because I can see why the researchers who have been in this for literally decades, they want, because they've done research for decades, they want people to hear what they've learned and discovered, as opposed to sitting down and talking with some kid who, they don't think has been in this long enough to know anything. And that's the biggest rub, and it's kind of funny. It'd be humbling for the researchers, but it's important. I think, obviously, these younger people want to be heard, and they want to talk about it. They don't want to just sit and listen.
Well, that, and I think it's also very refreshing, too. I think most of my student colleagues are coming from very different backgrounds and positions. Not everybody's coming from a scientific background, and not everybody's coming from just very different places. And the level of objectivity I think they're bringing to it, and just the difference of viewpoints that they bring to it, opens things up, and you start asking different questions. You tend to get pigeonholed in some of the conventional group thinking, in that a phenomenon is a certain thing, or it's doing a certain thing because we start to assume a lot, and students are bringing such new, refreshing ideas to it. It's just constantly reshaping it and changing it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's and it reminds me of, because I was taking classes even last semester before I came out to Arizona, and in your classes you're supposed to debate. So one thing I was going to ask, which I'm sure it's similar to in a class, are people pretty civil with each other?
In the meetings, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They tend to be. Definitely, occasionally personalities start bucking heads, but they are definitely very civil to each other, and in the end, everybody's respectful. So, yes.
Did people really get involved and excited about the investigator training also?
Yes, absolutely. That's there's always more. They always want more from it.
That's probably why the ghost hunting gets so popular, because so many people go out and actually do it, including which we did for the crypto science. When, for instance, this is the one that freaks people out a lot. When you were able to arrange for us to spend the night in a graveyard that supposedly had a lot of activity.
Yes.
And there was quite a group of people that went out there, and a lot of press coverage as well.
Yes. That was actually, I think, our first formal expedition. And expeditions are great because they really allow people to get a hands-on experience with it. You can sit there all day and talk about, skills and researching, and go and talking to people, interviewing a witness, but when we've got a report of some real activity and we have an opportunity to assemble a team and go out there and take it on firsthand, then it's real.
Mm-hmm.
And people are really excited to do that. And I think we learned a lot from that particular investigation.
Yeah. Did you ever have situations where people went on some of these outings and got so freaked out they didn't come back, or did you find that at all? I guess.
It's definitely the kind of thing that weeds out personalities that really don't have the discipline to be in it. I wouldn't say that any particular phenomenon or any experiences freaked people out enough. I think it was more that they experienced the hard work involved,
mm-hmm.
and didn't have the discipline to pursue it from that.
But then I'm sure there were also people, though, that got inspired and excited to do more.
Yes, definitely. One of our most valuable members over the years is Kevin Harris. He started out very reluctant, very, very skeptical, and experienced some things firsthand and hooked him, got him into it. He was a theoretical mathematician and a Renaissance man in general. And he definitely was approaching it from a very skeptical, objective view, and he heard some anomalous sounds when we were down in the Tivoli, and I think that got him hooked.
Yeah, that's exciting, because one thing that, for you listeners, you can check the Crypto Science YouTube page, right? I think you have it up there, because those were some of the coolest EVPs, I've ever heard in an investigation that you guys got there.
Yes, actually, they are. Well, there's the one that's my favorite EVP that I've ever heard of any investigation anybody's ever done. Is the one that sounds to me like the little girl sighing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they are on the YouTube page. They're also on the Crypto Science Society homepage.
Okay.
And actually, Kevin did some really good analysis on those particular EVPs and determined that they don't have echoes, which is particularly interesting.
Right.
Because anything that happens in the physical universe, obviously, if you're making a sound, it should have an echo. Especially
down there in the bowels of the Tivoli, where everything's stone and there's a lot of echoing down there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's an artificial cave. It was designed that way in order to maintain the temperature of the beer when it used to be a brewery and they were storing it on it. So yeah, definitely anomalous sounds and anomalous lack of echo.
So that's what, if you were to give advice, it would seem like giving advice to any group out there, such as, let's say, MUFON, because we're both very familiar with that, and getting younger people, they either, if they don't do it in their regular meetings, they got to have an offshoot meetings where they create space for people to do some investigation on a training way, and also have some communication, like a forum, let people talk with each other about all of this.
Right, absolutely, and allow feedback. Let people provide some suggestions, and if they have a project or something in mind, let it go, let it happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually kind of, we started out doing things fairly conventionally, just to get the ball rolling and get some attention and recognition. We had a lecture meeting once a month. As people started getting more involved, we started getting some suggestions, and one of the women in the group, Sandra Haas, she started bringing up her ideas of a class that she used to have, and this kind of open forum, like research topic type of thing, and that was a lot of her idea, and she pushed that. So listening to your people and allowing the suggestions to take form.
Cool.
So,
Yep, well, we got to take another break. When we get back, we're going to talk more about the faculty and getting some of the academia involved with your investigation and how that evolved over time. We're talking to Jason Cordova about the Crypto Science Society. We'll be back in a minute. You're listening to Open Minds Radio.
The Lou Dobbs Show. Welcome back to Open Minds Radio. Here now, former official spokesperson for the Mutual UFO Network, your host of Open Minds Radio, Alejandro Rojas.
All of a sudden, I'm getting a little sentimental. This is the last segment I'll be doing here on KFNX. I'm going to miss the KFNX crew because they are awesome. I really liked everybody here at KFNX, so want to get that in before I run out of time, because I always run out of time. Oh, yay, at the end of the show. Jason, we were talking about paranormal and the Crypto Science Society. I wanted to ask about, because I know you had this issue where you had to find a faculty advisor, and that became a little difficult. How did that evolve? I mean, did you find problems, of course, with people taking your idea seriously?
Yes and no. At first, really the first incarnation of that was that I was fortunate enough that the student activities office was helpful, and they agreed to what the director agreed to serve as an interim faculty advisor until I could find someone just to get the ball rolling, and that took a little bit of searching, and then all of a sudden it just kind of happened one day. Ironically, the administrative assistant for the aviation department agreed to serve as a faculty advisor, and the next thing I knew, I had faculty members from my own department coming up to me asking me questions about paranormal matters, and kind of almost covertly, and they were kind of cautious, and they almost seemed a little bit embarrassed at first, and then reassured, and to the point where I actually have had some faculty members going out and doing some investigations for us. You know, taking a couple, like a camera or something here and there, to this bed and breakfast that they stayed at. And they wanted to check some stuff out and wanted to ask my opinion upon it. So definitely evolved, and definitely served its purpose by lending legitimacy and credibility.
Mm-hmm. Now, what was kind of maybe one of the more shocking instances where you had a faculty member perhaps come to you and share an experience and change from, hesitant to enthusiastic?
Well, I would probably use the example I was referring to as one of the teachers in the aerospace department came to me saying, "Hey, I stayed at this bed and breakfast, and I had some weird things happen to me. It was a bed and breakfast up in Estes Park, and he actually had the blanket pulled off of him. There was I think there was some rustling. The window might have even opened,
Wow.
And he was just freaked out. And he was, he's like, I'm a pilot. He was also an Air Force Reserve officer, and these people, these kind of people, they're nuts and bolts. They've got to stick to their guns and trust their instruments, so they go off data. And he was shown some data, and he didn't know what to do with it. So he said, what do I do? What should I do? If I go back again, I recommended he take a camera, just the basic stuff. I offered to let him borrow some equipment out of our equipment locker and take it with him. He ended up just taking a couple a digital camera and took some pictures and actually got some all right orb photos. He wasn't too impressed with them himself, but he also went to the Stanley Hotel and did some digging in there, and we debriefed and looked over the data afterwards. But,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty neat.
Did any of them share some UFO stories with you?
Trying to remember. I'm sure they have. There's so many.
So would you say then the faculty in general became pretty enthusiastic about what you're doing?
Yes, actually. They acknowledged what I was doing and what was going on. And I think as far as the UFO thing goes, I didn't have any of the teachers sharing UFO encounters, at least not in the aerospace department. But I think they're still worried about that stigma. But I think as time will go, they'll loosen up a little more. And then the newer generation, though, I had a lot of fellow students that in the aerospace department and throughout campus that were very enthusiastic and wanting to share stories and things like that.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. So now you're working on expanding it to other universities or colleges, and you say you've had some response.
Yes. A couple mutual friends who happen to be attending schools at University of Colorado in Boulder and CSU in Fort Collins. There was some interest, kind of friend of a friend said something about having some interest at Regis University, but that never actually panned out. But there is some definite interest at CSU and CU. Oh, and now DU, actually a colleague with MUFON, an investigator, is going back for grad school at DU, and she wants to try to do something with it there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's exciting. It's something that, of course, is scientific, as we know. So, I mean, there is certainly some help that could be gained from making student organizations. Like you said, these students become faculty, and once, like your experience, once the students take it serious, faculty then begins to get involved as well.
Right. And the fact that the student organization itself is an extension of the college, they're officially recognized by the institution, and that in and of itself lends a lot of credibility to what we do, and one thing leads to another.
Oh, no. Somebody asked, what is the strangest thing you have ever seen? And I don't know that we have time for you to get into your stories, which I wanted to get into, because you've had a couple amazing stories. Maybe what is the strangest one that you would say, and if you could quickly go through what happened?
The strangest experience I've ever had in my life?
Yeah, or strangest thing you've ever seen?
Well, it would probably be my original UFO sighting when I was about 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
It was at in the Roaring Fork Valley when we used to live up there, and I saw what appeared to be a 5-foot diameter glass ball with an amber-colored light emanating out of the center, zigzagged across the field, across the river from our house, came and hovered by the window for a little bit, and then zipped off the river, upstream.
And then what'd you go tell your dad? This was funny.
Yeah, I went and told him, there's this light outside, got to come see it. And he said, shut up and go to sleep. I said, well, if we wake up on Alpha Centauri, it's not my fault.
Well, we're out of time, so this is the last of our short shows. We'll have to have you on again where we'll talk about the other experiences you've had, and maybe some of our shared experiences. That'll probably be really fun to go through. But thanks for being on the show. What is the website for the Crypto Science Society?
It's mscd.edu/crypto, but the best way to get to it is just Google.
Google Crypto Science Society. Thanks, Jason. Join us next week. Remember, it's 7 p.m. at openminds.tv. We're going to have George Filer, a U.S. Air Force officer who chased UFOs and was involved with aliens being shot in an Air Force base. So you're not going to want to miss this. 7 p.m. next Monday, openminds.tv. Talk to you next week, people.
You watch your feet, the cracks in the past.